Welcome back once again to the Wagon Shop here in Joliet, Montana, where I work on horse-drawn vehicles and all things horse-drawn related. Last week I did some testing between two different styles of eveners on DoubleTrees. Well, this raised a number of questions in the comment section and even raised a few questions in my own mind. One of the problems that I had on the test last week was being able to distinguish clearly just what kind of pressure or tonnage that I was generating on these eveners. So I took a oil-filled gauge, it goes up to 3,000 pounds, and inserted it in my pressure system on this press. So now I can test not only the tonnage but also the pressure PSI that is generating when I do these tests. So I'm just going to push against the press itself and watch the correlation between the tonnage gauge and the PSI gauge to see what the relationship is before I do this test. Well, I have made statements and made different claims over the years, basically falling back on the history of baseball. Well, the baseball bat has predominantly been built out of ash because of its resiliency to that impact. Well, I also use it for reaches and wheels and poles also because of its resilience. Well, I've also used it for eveners because of that same reason. But I have never really put these to the test like I'm going to do this week. I went to town, and I already have some ash here, but I went to town and I bought some red oak, some white oak, some hard maple, and some hickory. I want to test just which wood works the best for eveners. So I have a selection of eveners here that are made out of these 5 different species of wood, all made to the same pattern, and I'm going to run them through the planer so they are all exactly the same thickness. Now there are a number of tests that hardwoods undergo. They are tested for weight, for density, specific gravity, the hardness, for impact resistance, number of different things. I'm not going to get all that complicated. Those numbers you can find online if you go to hardwood charts. I'm just going to do a simple test and weigh out each evener that I'm going to test today. Well, while I was at the hardwood store picking out these 5 different species, the fellow that was helping me asked me what I was doing. So I relayed the little test I was going to do, and his first response was, yep, red oak will break the first. So we all have our preconceptions maybe of who's going to win, so make your bets and let's see how it turns out. Well, I have to say I was kind of surprised at some of the results of this test myself. Not really quite what I expected. I expected white oak to be way up there, maybe even competing with the maple and hickory. I was really surprised it came out at the bottom. But you know, each species of wood has its purpose and its place. Maybe just they don't all function well in the place of eveners. Anyway, I thought I had this all pegged, and I was in agreement with the guy at the hardwood store, and I made an extra red oak evener thinking this is the one that's going to fail first. Well, I want to do a test with a metal band on the back and see what the difference is, because I have been asked a number of times that if I would band the back of an evener. Usually it's for somebody that is plowing or skidding logs. Well, a number of you asked, why don't I put a metal strap on the back? And I have been asked to do that off and on, but I've never tested just what it accomplishes. So I want to test that now. My first thought was, I'm going to test the one that comes out on the bottom. Well, white oak is the most expensive, and I'm too cheap to break another board just for a test. So I'm going to go up one notch and use my white ash. I actually have a lot of it here. So I'm going to put a metal band on the back of this white ash board. Now I initially thought it was going to be actually red oak, so I made an extra blank just to have it ready. But now I have to make one out of ash, and I'm going to put a metal band on the back of it, and let's test it and see what it does. Well, the conclusion of the whole matter, I'm pretty impressed with hickory. I knew it was strong and resilient. I didn't know it would be twice some of the other woods. You know, when I put the metal band behind the ash evener, I expected a little more from that. You know, I've been asked a number of times to put that metal strap on the back for people that are plowing or skidding, especially when you get up to that ton horse or bigger. You know, when you hit that root or you lock up against that stump, something's got to give, and it's usually that evener that gives. You know, the metal band really didn't make a big difference in the breakage, but it did make a big difference on whether it came apart. You know, that's where I see the advantage of that metal strap, is when that evener breaks, that metal strap keeps things together, and that can probably make a big difference between a wreck or not. So, resistance to breaking, I don't know if it's that big a deal. But anyway, hickory, I'm pretty impressed with hickory. Twice the resistance to tonnage than the other woods. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting test. I don't know if you learned something. I know I did. Interesting. Anyway, thanks for following along, and thanks for watching.